Welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be showing some checkmate patterns. I'm not going to show like the super common ones like the ladder mate and stuff like that, but got some cool checkmate patterns here, and it's really like chess is all about pattern recognition. So learning these checkmate patterns is really good to first of all like learn different like possibilities and just like expand your knowledge of the game, but also you can see them in like you can more recognize them in games when you're low time, and also you can set up some really cool sacrifices to get these patterns. um, so the first one is a pretty common one, but it's just a nice little teaser. We got the Smothered mate here. After this knight checks here, king goes back, and then knight goes back, double check. And then if king goes here, it's checkmate like this. So king has to go back here. Queen takes, only move is rook takes, and then knight delivers the checkmate. That's the Smothered mate. The next checkmate pattern, this is called the opera mate. And I like obviously there's not like real game positions or anything. It's just theoretical stuff that I just threw together in the analysis board. But that's not really important. Uh, this is the opera mate. Called that because Paul Morphy played it when I think he sacrificed his queen in the famous opera game where these guys were like, "Hey, let's go to the opera," and then they whipped out a chessboard and tried to like beat him 2v1 while he was distracted with the opera, and he still just cleaned their clock. So the opera mate though is when you have a bishop like this against the king in the middle, and then you move the rook down, and the rook covers all of this, and the bishop covers this diagonal, including the rook. That's the opera mate. This is called Anastasia's mate, and Anastasia's mate is when you have a king on the edge of the board, you check with the rook, and then a knight covers the diagonal escape squares. So that's Anastasia's mate. In a similar vein, we have the Arabian mate, because every knight mate starts with A, apparently. So in the Arabian mate, it's very similar, but what it is a rook covered by a knight. So the knight covers this square, and obviously the rook covers all of these. So that's the Arabian mate. Next, I forgot the name of this mate. But this is kind of a very similar. I think this is I don't remember. It might be Rayt's mate, but don't quote me on it. Uh, but the bishop covers the only escape square, and it's very similar to that Anastasia's mate, except you use the bishop this time. So you have the rook on the end, the bishop covers the only escape square. This is called Bowden's mate, and this is an actual example from a game that I saw. Bowden's mate is basically you have like crisscrossing bishops, but it's kind of hard to. It was kind of hard for me to draw up a position, so I decided just to show this game. But White sacrificed the queen and then checked with this bishop, and then this bishop cuts here, this bishop cuts here, and there's some blockers right there that the king can't move, and that's Bowden's mate. And like a lot of puzzles on this website have Bowden's mate, but it's been one of the hard. If for me personally, it's one of the hardest mates to recognize when you have it in a game, and it's pretty uncommon to actually get it. So. Uh, it's still really good to really good to know though, because like if you see that that checkmate pattern, then you could see that queen sack. Um, Here's another checkmate that's not too interesting, but basically it's two bishops and a knight. The knight covers the bishop and this escape square, and this bishop covers this. Not anything too. This is the blind swine mate. I see this all the time in puzzles and in games. I just didn't know it had a name. But basically, the king is kind of trapped at the edge, and you use these two rooks in conjunction with each other to surround the king. That's in a lot of puzzles on chess.com. The next one, this is the dovetail mate. It basically is like the king gets checked by a queen that's protected, and the queen covers all this, and then the king's own pieces cut off the king square, and that's why it's called the dovetail mate. And it's also called a fishtail mate because it kind of makes that shape. And then in a similar vein, this is called swallow's mate. But basically, this checkmate is you have a queen protected, and then the pieces are in a little different setup, but it's still kind of the same principle of the pieces block the king's own escape. This is called the epaulet mate because big shoulder pads and medieval armor would be called epaulets or pauldrons. Basically, the king is shouldered by his own pieces, and that cuts off the escape squares there. So the king can't escape the checkmate because the pieces are there shouldering it. Um, we have this checkmate that I don't remember what it's called, but it's a pretty common pattern when you have these like doubled pawns here, and the bishop's still alive. You check with the rook, king goes back. You check with the bishop, only moves, king goes back. And this is checkmate because now the bishop cuts that square off. Also, I didn't put this in there, but knight here is also checkmate. So instead of the rook, that's another pretty common pattern. And finally, the last one, this is Vukovic's mate. And Bobby Fischer played it in what was called the game of the century, where basically it's the rook. Oops, that's hit load first. The rook comes in, and the knight cuts off the escape squares, and the rook is protected, and that's checkmate. So there's some checkmate patterns for you. I just thought it'd be a nice little video showing off some cool checkmate patterns, and hopefully you get to use these in and style on your opponent.